He whispered it so softly I almost thought I imagined it. Move everything, every dollar, the full 25 million. 48 hours later, my husband was dead, and 2 days after the funeral, my son came to me and said something that made my blood run cold. Before this story unfolds, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what you think this story is really about. Trust me, your theory might change everything by the end. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and quiet desperation. That's the only way I can describe it. Not sadness, desperation, the kind that settles into your bones when you know something irreversible is approaching, and no amount of money, prayers, or bargaining can stop it. My husband, Daniel, lay propped up against white pillows, the rhythmic beep of machines, marking time more accurately than any clock ever could. The man who once filled every room with laughter and authority now looked smaller, thinner, like the weight of secrets had finally caught up to him. I held his hand, warm but weak, and tried to memorize the way his thumb pressed against mine. 23 years of marriage teaches you the language of touch. I knew when he was tired, I knew when he was afraid, and that night I knew he was preparing to say something that would change my life forever. Come closer, he whispered. I leaned in, my ear inches from his lips. His voice was barely sound now, more breath than words. Promise me something, he said. My throat tightened. Anything, he swallowed with effort, his eyes flicking briefly to the door, then back to mine. That alone should have warned me. Tomorrow morning, he said slowly, I need you to transfer everything. I frowned. Everything, all of it, he breathed. Every account, every asset you can move, the full 25 million. For a moment, I thought the medication was confusing him. Daniel, I said gently, you're not thinking clearly. We can talk to the lawyer when you're stronger. His grip tightened, startling me. No, he said sharply, then softened his tone. You don't understand. It has to be now, quietly. No delays. My heart started racing. Why? He closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then he spoke again, slower, like each word cost him something. Because once I'm gone, he said, people will come, people you trust, people you love. A chill crawled up my spine, and they will lie. I laughed nervously, trying to shake the unease. Daniel, you're scaring me. That's good, he replied. That means you're listening. I wanted to ask more. I needed to ask more, but before I could, the nurse stepped in, reminding us visiting hours were over. Daniel squeezed my hand one last time. Promise me, he whispered again. I nodded. I promise. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in our empty bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. Daniel was a brilliant businessman, ruthless when he needed to be, but never paranoid, never secretive with me. So why now? The next morning, I did exactly what he asked. I transferred every movable dollar into accounts solely under my name. I followed instructions I didn't fully understand, signed forms I'd never expected to sign alone, and kept my mouth shut, just like he told me to. 40-8 hours later, Daniel died. The funeral was a blur of black suits, whispered condolences, and people who suddenly remembered how much they loved my husband, executives, partners, distant relatives, all orbiting me with polite smiles and sharp eyes. And then there was our son, Michael. He stood a few steps away during the service, arms crossed, face unreadable, 28 years old, smart, ambitious, too much like his father in ways that had always made me uneasy. He barely spoke to me that day. 2 days after the funeral, I heard a knock at my door just after sunset. When I opened it, Michael stood there alone. Mom, he said quietly, stepping inside. I tried to smile. You should have called. He didn't sit down. He didn't even take his jacket off. Instead, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, Dad told me you'd move the money. My breath caught, and he said, if you did, Michael continued, his voice steady, it means you still don't know the truth. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Michael's words hung in the air between us like smoke after an explosion, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. Dad told me you'd move the money. My hands trembled as I slowly closed the front door behind him. The soft click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. Final, like a line being drawn. What are you talking about? I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. Michael finally sat down, choosing the armchair opposite me instead of the couch beside me. That alone felt deliberate, calculated, he said. Michael continued, folding his hands together, that if you transferred everything without asking questions, it meant you trusted him more than me. A knot formed in my stomach. Michael, Your father was very sick. He said a lot of things near the end. Michael's lips twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. That's what everyone keeps saying. He leaned forward, but Dad wasn't confused. He was afraid. The word afraid echoed in my mind. Daniel had been many things over the years. Brilliant, demanding, stubborn, but afraid. That was new. He told me there was a clock, Michael went on, a countdown, and that once he died, it would start ticking faster. I swallowed. Did he say what he was afraid of? Michael hesitated for just a second, too long. He said, Michael replied carefully, that the money was leverage, and whoever controlled it, controlled the truth. My pulse quickened. And what truth is that? Michael stood abruptly, pacing the living room now, his shoes tapping sharply against the hardwood floor. He stopped in front of the framed family photo on the wall, the three of us smiling on a vacation that suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. Dad built his empire on deals no one knows about, Michael said. Deals that never made it onto paper. I crossed my arms. That's not true. Your father was careful. Michael turned to me sharply. He was brilliant. There's a difference. Silence stretched between us again. Mom, he said finally, softer now. Where did you move the money? My heart skipped. Daniel's voice echoed in my head. They will come. They will lie. I moved it where your father told me to. I replied. Why does it matter? Michael exhaled slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small black USB drive and placed it on the coffee table between us. This, he said, is why it matters. I stared at the tiny object like it might explode. What is it? Proof, Michael answered. Or destruction, depending on who gets their hands on it. A chill ran down my spine. Proof of what? Michael hesitated again, then spoke the words that made my chest tighten. Of what Dad did, and who he did it with. I felt dizzy. Why are you telling me this now? Because, he said, Dad told me to come to you if he died before finishing what he started. I stood up, my knees weak. Finishing what? Michael's eyes met mine, and for the first time since he walked in, I saw fear there. Real fear. Protecting you, he said, from the people who are about to realize you're holding everything they want. A sudden knock on the door made us both jump. 3 sharp knocks. Michael's head snapped toward the door. His jaw tightened. There early, he muttered. My heart pounded. Who is they? Before he could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I stared at the screen. Then, another knock, louder this time. Michael grabbed the USB and shoved it back into his pocket. Mom, he whispered urgently, whatever happens next, don't tell anyone where the money is. Not the lawyers, not the police. Another knock, even louder. Michael, I whispered back, what is going on? He stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. Dad wasn't just sick, he said. He was being watched. The door handle rattled. And now, Michael finished. So are you. The phone buzzed again. Same number. I answered, my hand shaking. A calm, unfamiliar voice spoke on the other end. Double quotes, Mrs. Carter. The voice said smoothly, we believe you're in possession of assets that don't fully belong to you. My blood ran cold. And we'd like to discuss how you plan to return them. The voice on the phone was calm to calm, the kind of calm that comes from power, not patience. I held the phone to my ear, staring at Michael, as if he might suddenly explain everything with a single look. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, forcing each word out slowly. There was a brief pause on the line, then a soft chuckle. Mrs. Carter, the man replied, your husband was a very intelligent man, brilliant, even, but intelligence often convinces people they're untouchable. My stomach twisted. And yet, he continued, here we are. Michael shook his head slightly, silently urging me not to say another word. I'm hanging up now, I said. I wouldn't recommend that. The voice replied smoothly. The gentleman standing outside your door would be quite disappointed. My blood ran cold. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling. Michael, who's outside? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked quietly to the window beside the door and peeked through the blinds. 2 men, he whispered. Suits, no badges. The knocking stopped. For a moment, the silence felt worse. Then the doorbell rang. Once, slow, deliberate, double quotes. They know Dad's dead, Michael murmured. Which means they think the clock just ran out. I raised the phone again. If you have something to say, say it. The man sighed, almost theatrically. Your husband moved certain assets before his illness became public. Assets tied to collaborative ventures. Illegal ones, I asked. Uncomfortable ones, he corrected. Daniel understood the value of discretion. Unfortunately, Discretion ends when the keeper of secrets dies. I closed my eyes. They will lie. Daniel didn't steal anything, I said. No, the man replied. He protected it. For a fee. Michael's face hardened. And now, the voice continued, those protections have expired. Another knock, harder this time. Michael leaned close to me. Mom, listen to me. Dad said if they came to the house first, it meant one thing. What? I whispered. They're scared. The thought sent a strange jolt through me. These men, whoever they were, didn't sound scared. But fear doesn't always sound loud. What do you want? I asked into the phone. Transparency, the man replied. We want to know where the money is. I laughed bitterly. So you can take it. So we can settle accounts, he said, peacefully. I ended the call. The doorbell rang again. This time, it didn't stop. Michael grabbed my wrist. We can't stay here. Where would we go? I whispered. Somewhere Dad knew they wouldn't look first. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. He left this in his office safe. Michael said it was for you, if things went wrong. I unfolded it with shaking hands, thought it was Daniel's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I didn't have time to explain everything. I'm sorry. Trust Michael, but not completely. Trust no one completely. The first lie I told you was that this money was ours. My vision blurred. The first lie, I whispered, but Michael looked away. What does that mean? I asked, thought before he could answer. The knocking turned into pounding. Mrs. Carter, a voice called from the other side of the door. We know you're home. Michael pulled me toward the hallway. There's a back exit through the kitchen. What about the money? I whispered. He met my eyes. That's why they're here. And why we need to disappear before they realize something. Realize what? That Dad didn't just hide money, Michael said grimly. He hid evidence. We slipped through the kitchen, hearts pounding, every sound magnified. As we stepped out into the cool night air, I felt like my entire life had cracked open, spilling secrets I didn't even know existed. We drove without headlights for several blocks, turning sharply, doubling back, until Michael finally stopped in an empty parking garage. Only then did he speak again. Mom, he said quietly, there's something else Dad never told you. I braced myself. He wasn't planning to die, Michael said. And the people looking for that money, they're not just business partners, he swallowed. They're the reason he got sick. The parking garage smelled of oil and damp concrete. The engine ticked softly as it cooled, each metallic click echoing through the empty space like a countdown I couldn't see. I sat frozen in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead while Michael's last words replayed over and over in my mind. They're the reason he got sick. I finally turned to him. What do you mean, they're the reason? Michael didn't answer right away. He rubbed his face with both hands, as if trying to wipe away exhaustion that sleep could never fix. Dad didn't just fall ill, he said quietly. Not the way the doctors said. My heart began to pound. Cancer doesn't work that way, Michael. He nodded. I know what the reports said. I also know what Dad started investigating 6 months before his diagnosis. I shook my head. You're talking in circles. Michael reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a thick envelope. He handed it to me. Open it. Inside were photocopies of medical records, lab results, and emails between Daniel and a private research firm I'd never heard of. I skimmed them at first, then slower, my chest tightening with every line. Unusual toxin markers, prolonged exposure, inconsistent with environmental sources. My hands started shaking. What is this? Proof, Michael said, or at least enough to raise questions. I looked up at him, my voice barely working. Are you saying someone poisoned your father? Michael met my gaze. I'm saying someone wanted him gone. The weight of it crushed me. I thought back to the last year, Daniel's sudden fatigue, the unexplained fevers, the way his doctors always seemed confused but never alarmed. And the money, I whispered. Michael exhaled sharply. That's where everything connects, he explained slowly, carefully, like he was afraid saying it too fast would make it real. Daniel had been holding funds for a private consortium. Powerful investors, politicians, and corporate figures who needed money moved quietly. Daniel wasn't just a businessman to them, he was a gatekeeper. And when he started asking questions, I asked. They realized he was a liability, Michael said. The car felt too small, the air too thick, and you knew all this. I asked him. Michael hesitated. Some of it, he admitted. Not everything. I felt something cold twist in my stomach. What didn't you tell me? Michael's jaw tightened. Dad didn't trust anyone fully, including me. But before he got really sick, he asked me to set up contingency plans. For what? For you, Michael said. And for the money. I stared at him. You helped him move it. No, he replied quickly. He wouldn't let me. He said if I knew where it went, it would put me in danger. That sounded familiar. Trust no one completely. But, Michael continued, I did help him create decoys. My breath caught. Decoys. Michael nodded. Shell accounts. Fake trails. Enough noise to keep them chasing shadows. My mind reeled. So the 25 million is not where they think it is, he said, and not entirely what they think it is. I pressed my hands to my temples. Then why would your father tell me to move everything? Because you were the one person they wouldn't suspect, Michael said. They see you as grieving, emotional, predictable. The words stung, even if they were true. And because, Michael added, Dad believed you'd do exactly what he said without telling anyone. I looked at him sharply. That sounds like manipulation. Michael flinched. It was protection. Silence settled again. Then I remembered the note. Trust Michael, but not completely. What did you lie to me about? I asked suddenly. Michael stiffened. What do you mean? The note, I said. Your father said there were lies. Plural. Michael looked away, his reflection faint in the windshield. There's one more thing, he said slowly. Something I didn't tell you when I came to the house. My heart sank. What? Michael swallowed. They didn't find Dad by accident. I stared at him. What are you saying? I think, he said carefully, someone close to us tipped them off. A chill crawled up my spine. Who? Michael hesitated too long. Michael, I whispered. Who? He finally turned to me. It might have been me. The words hit like a physical blow. I didn't mean to. He rushed on. I was being watched. I didn't even realize it at first. But someone followed me after one of my meetings with Dad's lawyer. I felt sick. So you led them to us? Yes, he admitted quietly. And if they know you moved the money, it's because they were already watching the family. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then my phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. But this time, there was a message instead of a call. We know you're not home anymore. Another message followed immediately. And we know your son is with you. I looked up at Michael, terror flooding my chest. They know, I whispered. Michael's face hardened. Then, he said, starting the engine, it's time to stop running and start using what Dad left behind. The tires squealed softly as Michael pulled out of the parking garage, merging into the late-night traffic like we were just another car heading home. But nothing about my life felt normal anymore. Every passing headlight looked like pursuit. Every red light felt like a trap. Where are we going? I asked, gripping my seatbelt. Somewhere Dad never took you, Michael replied, because he didn't want you connected to it. That sentence alone told me more than he probably intended. We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city behind. Streetlights gave way to long stretches of darkness broken only by the occasional gas station or closed diner. Finally, Michael turned down a narrow road bordered by trees and stopped in front of an unremarkable warehouse. Faded paint, no signage, the kind of place no one ever looks at twice. This is it, he said. I asked. This is your father's contingency plan. Michael didn't answer. He got out, walked to the side of the building, and unlocked a steel door hidden behind a stack of pallets. Inside, the air was cool and dry, humming softly with electricity. Lights flicked on. Rows of servers filled the room. I froze. What is this? Michael closed the door behind us. This is why Dad was worth more alive than dead. He walked between the rows, his footsteps echoing. Daniel Carter wasn't just holding money, he was holding records. Transactions, communications, insurance. I whispered. Blackmail, he corrected. My knees felt weak. My husband was blackmailing people. He hated that word, Michael said. He preferred mutual protection. I stared at the machines, realizing with horror that my husband had been living a life parallel to the one I knew, a life built on secrets so dangerous they required an entire hidden infrastructure. He told me, Michael continued, that if anything happened to him, this system would activate in phases. Phases. I echoed. Deadman switches. Michael said calmly. If certain conditions aren't met, information gets released. My stomach dropped. Released to who? Journalists? Regulators? Foreign banks? Whoever can do the most damage. I thought back to Daniel's final days. The urgency, the fear, and the money. I asked, but Michael turned to me. That's the key. He pulled out his laptop and connected it to one of the servers. Screens lit up with encrypted files, account ledgers, timestamps, the 25 million you moved, he said. That wasn't just money. It was a signal. A signal to whom? To them, he replied. And to me. I stared at him. Explain. Dad designed it so that when you moved the money, it confirmed two things, Michael said. One, that he was dead. Two, that you were acting alone. And that matters because it transferred control, Michael said quietly, to me. The words landed like a slap. What? I whispered. Michael finally faced me fully. The accounts are still in your name, but the encryption keys, the release controls, they passed to me the moment the transfer was completed. My heart raced. Daniel never told me that. Michael shook his head. He wouldn't, because he didn't know who he could trust, including you. Anger surged through me. So I was just a pawn. No, Michael said quickly. You were the firewall, the human shield. I laughed bitterly. That's supposed to make me feel better. Michael looked conflicted. Dad believed you were the only one they wouldn't hurt. Not at first. Not at first. I felt suddenly exposed. So now what? Now, Michael said, we negotiate. With who? I demanded. The same people who are hunting us, he replied. Except this time, we're holding the detonator. My pulse thundered. You're talking about threatening them. I'm talking about survival, Michael said. They won't stop. Not unless we make the cost too high. I stepped back. This isn't what your father wanted. Michael's expression hardened. You don't know that. I stared at him. He wanted me safe. And I'm trying to keep you that way, Michael snapped. Then, softer, even if you don't understand how. Silence stretched between us, thick with distrust. Then one of the monitors chimed. Michael's eyes snapped to the screen. They've accessed the outer shell, he muttered. My blood ran cold. They found this place. Not exactly, he said, but they're testing the perimeter. A message flashed onto the screen, encrypted, but already partially decoded. Michael read it aloud. We are prepared to forgive the past. For the right price. I looked at him. They want the money. They want control, Michael corrected. And what do you want? I asked him quietly. Michael hesitated. For years, he said slowly, I lived in Dad's shadow, cleaning up his messes, fixing his systems, taking his risks without his rewards. I felt a sharp pang of fear. Michael, they underestimated him, he continued, and now they're underestimating me. That's when I realized the most dangerous truth so far. My husband might have built the weapon, but my son was ready to use it, and I didn't know which side I was on anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Even after Michael locked every door, activated security protocols I didn't understand, and told me the warehouse was temporarily invisible, my mind refused to rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face in that hospital bed, not weak, not dying, but watching, as if he'd known exactly how this would unfold. Just before dawn, I slipped away from the small office Michael had set up for me and wandered back into the server room. The hum of machines felt oddly comforting, like white noise against the chaos in my head. That's when I noticed something Michael hadn't. One server rack was older than the rest, not just outdated, intentionally isolated. No blinking lights, no visible network cables. Dust clung to its edges, disturbed only once in a while. I stepped closer. Taped to the back, nearly hidden, was a small envelope. My breath caught. I pulled it free with shaking hands. My name was written on it, not typed. Handwritten. Daniel single quotes as handwriting. For you. Only if you're alone. My heart pounded as I slipped into the office and locked the door. I sat down, steadying myself, and opened the envelope. Inside was a flash drive, smaller than the one Michael had shown me, and a folded note. I unfolded the paper first. If you're reading this, then Michael has shown you the machines but not the truth. That was intentional. My stomach dropped. I love our son, but love doesn't equal trust, and power reveals who people really are. I felt tears sting my eyes. You were never meant to be a pawn. You were meant to be the final authority. I stared at the words, my pulse racing. The money was never the weapon. The illusion of control was. I plugged the flash drive into the office computer. A single video file appeared. Daniel's face filled the screen, alive, healthy, recorded months before he ever got sick. Hi, he said softly. If you're watching this, I didn't get the chance to explain everything. I pressed my hand to my mouth. Michael believes the control keys transferred to him. Daniel continued. That's what I wanted him to believe. The system responds to behavior, not passwords. My heart thundered. The real trigger, Daniel said, is you. The screen shifted to diagrams, layers of permissions, redundancies, behavioral confirmations. When you moved the money, Daniel explained, you activated observation mode. The next step requires something only you would do. I leaned closer. Refuse, Daniel said, at the right moment. The video ended. I sat there in stunned silence. Michael didn't control the detonator. I did, and he didn't know it. A soft knock on the office door nearly made me jump out of my skin. Mom, Michael's voice. You awake? I quickly removed the flash drive and slipped it into my pocket before opening the door. He studied my face. You look pale. I didn't sleep, I said truthfully. He nodded. We have a problem. What kind of? I asked. Their offer just changed, Michael said. They don't just want the money anymore. My chest tightened. What do they want? You, he said. I stared at him. Me. They think you're the weak link, Michael continued. They want you to publicly authorize a partial reversal, something symbolic. It would neutralize the Deadman system. And you? I asked quietly. Michael hesitated. I think we give them something, enough to buy time. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and realized how confident he seemed. Too confident. What happens after? I asked. Michael's jaw tightened. After I take over. There it was. The ambition Daniel warned me about. I need time to think, I said. Michael studied me, then nodded. We don't have much. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a new message, a video attachment. I opened it. The camera panned slowly across a familiar place. My home. Then zoomed in on the front door. Voice spoke calmly. We can wait, the voice said, but your family can't. The message ended. I closed my eyes. They thought fear would control me. They didn't realize Daniel had trained me for this moment without ever saying a word, because now I knew exactly what I had to do and exactly who I couldn't trust. I didn't reply to Michael's message right away. Instead, I walked. The airport corridor stretched endlessly ahead of me. Polished floors reflecting overhead lights like 1,000 watchful eyes. Every step felt surreal, as if I were floating outside my own body, watching a woman who looked like me move with a calm I didn't remember learning. Behind me, chaos was unfolding. I could feel it. Phones buzzing, panic spreading, carefully constructed illusions cracking under the weight of exposure. Daniel had always said that powerful people aren't afraid of prison. They're afraid of humiliation, of losing control of the narrative. And that was exactly what I'd taken from them. My phone buzzed again. Michael, Mom, answer me. Now. I stopped walking and leaned against a wall, finally opening the encrypted app Daniel had installed on my phone months ago, disguised as a meditation tracker. I'd never questioned it. I just assumed it was another one of his quirks. Now the screen filled with notifications. Journalist access confirmed. Regulatory packets released. Financial watchdogs alerted. Time-stamped records verified. The Deadman switch wasn't just a threat, it was alive. I typed one message back to Michael. Me. Dad didn't give you control. He gave it to me. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Michael, you're lying. I closed my eyes. Trust Michael, but not completely. A third message came through, this time from an unknown number. Unknown, you made a serious mistake. I smiled faintly. That's what people say when they realize the game has flipped. By the time I reached the exit, my driver was waiting. A woman I didn't recognize, standing beside a black sedan. Mrs. Carter, she asked quietly. Yes. She opened the door. I'm with the firm your husband retained. We were told to watch for you. Daniel, always 10 steps ahead. Inside the car, she handed me a tablet. Your husband arranged for independent protection, she explained. Legal, financial, and physical. It activates only if you trigger Phase 3. And Phase 3 is? I asked. She met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Public truth. I looked down at the tablet. Headlines were already forming, not published yet, but drafted. Queued, waiting. Global Financial Consortium, under investigation. Secret accounts, link top executives to offshore network. Whistleblower files traced back to deceased. CEO Daniel hadn't just insured himself, he'd weaponized transparency. My phone buzzed again. This time, a call. Michael. I hesitated, then answered. What did you do? He demanded, his voice tight, furious, scared. I finished what your father started. I replied calmly. You blew everything up. He snapped. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, I said softly. I protected us. You protected yourself. he shot back. You took control away from me. I closed my eyes. That was never yours to take. Silence crackled on the line. Then Michael spoke again. Slower now, more measured. You planned this, he said. You knew I'd push for power. I hoped you wouldn't, I replied honestly. A sharp exhale. They're coming after me now. My heart tightened. Where are you? At the warehouse, he said. And before you ask, yes, I'm surrounded. Fear spiked, real fear, but I forced it down. Listen to me, I said. Leave now. I can't, Michael said. They've locked it down. I thought fast. Do you trust me? I asked. A bitter laugh. After today, I'm still your mother, I said quietly. And your father's plan accounted for this. How? He demanded. I glanced at the tablet, scrolling to a file labeled failsafe_M. Dad knew you might overreach, I said, so he built you an exit. I guided Michael through steps he didn't know existed. A hidden access corridor beneath the warehouse, a system override keyed to my biometric authorization. Minutes passed in agonizing silence. Then, I'm out. Michael breathed. Where do I go? I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to pull him close, to protect him, but protection without boundaries had brought us here. Go dark, I said, and stay away from the money. What about you? He asked. I looked out the window as the city lights blurred past. I'm done hiding. I replied. The call ended by morning. The story broke. Investigations, raids, arrests. The men from the airport vanished, their power evaporating faster than I'd imagined. When corruption is exposed to light, it doesn't fight back loudly. It runs. But not everyone was running. That afternoon, my lawyer called. There's a problem, she said carefully. What kind? Your son, she replied. Michael has filed an emergency injunction. My heart sank. On what grounds? She paused. He's challenging your authority over the assets, she said, and claiming coercion. I closed my eyes. Daniel had warned me. Power reveals who people really are. And my final test wasn't against enemies, it was against my own son. By nightfall, everything had changed again. Michael believed we were preparing to negotiate. He paced the warehouse, speaking rapidly into burner phones, issuing instructions to people I'd never met, his voice steady and sharp, the voice of someone who thought he was finally in control. I watched him from the office doorway, my heart heavy. Daniel had been right. Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. I waited until Michael left to take a call outside before acting. My hands shook as I locked the office door behind me and plugged Daniel's flash drive back into the computer. The video file was still there, unchanged, but a new folder had appeared. Secondary protocol. My breath caught as I opened it. A text document appeared on screen. If Michael is pushing for escalation, then he's already crossed the line I feared. This is where you must become who they don't expect. Below it were step-by-step instructions, not technical. Personal. Daniel had known me better than I knew myself. They see you as emotional, maternal, passive. Use that. Agree to the meeting. Let them believe you're surrendering. I swallowed hard. But do not transfer a single dollar. Instead, Daniel instructed me to authorize a symbolic transaction, one that appeared to unlock access while actually sealing it tighter. A legal maneuver buried inside financial compliance, language so dull no criminal consortium would bother reading it carefully. Daniel smiled from the screen in a short, follow-up clip. I married you because you saw patterns other people missed, he said. I trusted you because you listen. Before you act. Tears blurred my vision. The door opened suddenly. Michael stepped back inside, yanked the flash drive out, just in time. They've agreed to a meeting, he said. Tomorrow. Neutral location. My heart skipped. You told them yes. I told them we were considering their offer, Michael replied. They want you there. I'm not going alone, I said firmly. Michael hesitated. They didn't invite me. Of course they didn't. They think I'm the pressure point, I said. Michael frowned. You are. I met his gaze evenly. No, I'm the lock. He looked at me for a long moment, suspicion flickering across his face. What did Dad leave you? He asked suddenly. The question hung heavy in the air. Grief, I replied simply, and instructions to survive. He didn't push further, but I could tell the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, I barely slept. I rehearsed every word I'd say, every expression I'd wear, weak but not broken, afraid but cooperative, just like they expected. The meeting was set in a private lounge at an international airport, the kind reserved for diplomats and people who never pass through security like everyone else. Two men waited when I arrived. One older, silver-haired, expensive suit. The other younger, eyes sharp, silent. They stood when I entered. Mrs. Carter, the older man said smoothly, "Thank you for coming." I sat without offering my hand. "I want this to be over," I said quietly. "That depends on you," he replied. They slid a tablet across the table. "All we need," the younger man said for the first time, "is confirmation." I stared at the screen. A single button. Authorize. "This will deactivate all contingency releases," the older man said. "Your son can continue his life. So can you." I swallowed. Once I pressed this, I said, "What guarantee do I have?" The older man smiled. "You have our word." I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded slowly. "I just need a moment," I said, "to say goodbye to my husband." They exchanged glances, then nodded. I closed my eyes, and pressed the button. The tablet chimed, softly. "Authorization received," the younger man said. Relief washed over their faces, but they didn't notice what I did next. I stood. "You should check your phones," I said gently. The older man frowned. His phone buzzed. Then the younger man's. Then the tablet lit up again, this time flashing red. The older man's smile vanished. "What did you do?" he demanded. I looked him straight in the eyes. Exactly what my husband planned. The screen filled with alerts. Access revoked. Funds locked. Data duplication initiated. "You didn't take control," I said calmly. "You triggered exposure." The younger man stood abruptly. "You lied to us." I shook my head. "You underestimated me." Security alarms began to sound in the distance. "This facility is monitored," I continued. "And now so are you." The older man stared at me with naked fury. "You think this ends here?" he hissed. I leaned closer. "No," I said softly. "It ends with you deciding how much of your life you're willing to lose." I walked out without looking back. Outside, my phone buzzed. A message from Michael. "What did you do?" I stared at the screen. And for the first time, I didn't rush to answer. The courtroom was nothing like I expected. No drama, no shouting, just polished wood, cold air, and the quiet hum of a system that pretended neutrality while weighing the fate of families, like assets on a balance sheet. I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands folded, spine straight. Across the aisle, Michael avoided my eyes. He looked smaller here, not the confident architect of systems and threats, not the man who'd believed he could outmaneuver everyone, just my son, boxed in by his own decisions. The judge entered, we stood, we sat, and just like that, the final battle began. Michael's attorney spoke first, smooth, precise, every sentence designed to sound reasonable. "Mrs. Carter," he began, "is a grieving widow who was manipulated during a period of extreme emotional vulnerability. My client believes the asset transfers and subsequent authorizations were made under undue influence." Undue influence. I almost smiled. My lawyer rose slowly. "She didn't rush. Daniel had chosen her for a reason. We do not dispute grief," she said calmly, "but we categorically reject manipulation." She nodded toward the screen. "Instead, we present intent." The first exhibit appeared, a video. Daniel. Alive, clear-eyed, recorded months before his illness became visible. Michael stiffened. "My wife," Daniel said on the screen, "is the only person I trust to end this if I cannot. If you are watching this in a courtroom, then my safeguards worked, and my concerns about my son were justified." A murmur rippled through the room. Michael's attorney objected immediately. "Hearsay." The judge raised a hand. "This is a pre-recorded affidavit authenticated prior to Mr. Carter's death." Overruled. I didn't look at Michael. I didn't need to. The video continued. "Michael is brilliant," Daniel said, "but brilliance without restraint becomes hunger. If he seeks control over these assets, it is not for protection, it is for ownership." I felt the words like a knife, sharp, necessary. Daniel's image faded. The judge turned to Michael. "Do you wish to respond?" Michael stood. For the first time since all this began, he looked unsure. "My father didn't trust me," Michael said. "That doesn't make him right." "No," the judge replied, "but it does make his intentions clear." Michael's lawyer tried again. Claims of duress, emotional manipulation, maternal dominance. Then my lawyer stood one final time. "Your Honor," she said, "we submit the final exhibit." The screen changed, a time-stamped log. Every decision, every authorization, every safeguard triggered, each one verified by independent systems, biometric, behavioral, temporal, no coercion, no panic. Only deliberate action. The judge studied the screen, then looked at me. Double quotes Mrs. Carter. He said, "Did you understand the consequences of your actions?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "Did anyone force you?" "No." "Did you act in accordance with your late husband's documented wishes?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Then this court recognizes your authority." The gavel struck. It was over. Michael didn't look at me as he left. That hurt more than I expected. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, questions shouted, cameras flashing. I ignored them all, stepping into the car Daniel had arranged long before this day ever came. That evening, I returned to the house. My house now. I walked through rooms filled with memories that felt both distant and sharp. Daniel's study, the chair where he used to sit, reviewing documents late into the night. I opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Inside was one last envelope. No name, just a date. Tomorrow's. My heart thudded as I opened it. Inside, a letter, and a final instruction. "If you're reading this, then you've chosen integrity over comfort. I'm proud of you." Tears finally came. Michael will feel betrayed. He will tell himself stories to survive. Let him. I exhaled. SHAKILY. The money is no longer the point. Attached to the letter was a document, a trust. Irrevocable. Every remaining dollar earmarked for restitution, reform, and transparency initiatives. Funds to rebuild what Daniel had helped corrupt. He hadn't wanted a legacy of power. He'd wanted an ending. I sat there for a long time, the weight of it settling into my bones. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Just 3 words. "I understand now." I didn't reply. Not yet. Some lessons need silence to fully land. The morning after the court ruling was the quietest morning of my life. Not the fragile quiet of fear, or the heavy quiet of grief, but something deeper. Settled. Earned. I woke before sunrise, the house still wrapped in shadows, and for the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel tight. Daniel used to say that silence tells the truth faster than words ever could. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the sky lighten through the window. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, life continuing, indifferent to the war that had just ended inside my family. I thought about Michael, about the boy he used to be, curious, protective, always wanting to prove himself. Daniel had seen what I hadn't wanted to, how easily love can twist into entitlement when power is involved. I checked my phone. No new messages. That was okay. Closure doesn't always arrive wrapped in reconciliation. Later that day, I met with the trustees Daniel had appointed years ago. 3 people from entirely different worlds: a retired judge, a financial ethics professor, and a humanitarian director. No one who could be bribed. No one who owed us anything. They reviewed the trust in silence. Finally, the judge looked up at me. "Your husband designed this so no single person could ever control it," he said, "including you." I nodded. That was the point. The funds began moving immediately, not into shadows, but into daylight. Whistleblower protections, regulatory reform, victim restitution, entire networks dismantled because Daniel had finally chosen exposure over secrecy. His enemies lost more than money. They lost immunity by evening. My face was everywhere. Headlines calling me brave, ruthless, naive, heroic. None of it mattered. I wasn't interested in being a symbol. I was interested in being free. That night, there was a knock at the door, not aggressive, not urgent, just human. I opened it. Michael stood there. No lawyers, no bravado, no masks. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he'd done homework as a child, where Daniel had once spread blueprints and dreams. "I thought you'd never want to see me again," Michael said. "I needed time," I replied. "So did you." He nodded. "I was angry, not because you took control, but because Dad never believed I could be more than him." I looked at him carefully. "He believed you could be anything. That's what scared him." Michael swallowed hard. "I thought power would make me safe," he admitted. "Instead, it almost destroyed us." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Power doesn't make us safe," I said softly. "Integrity does." Tears slid down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "I don't want the money," he said. "I don't want control." I studied him, not as an adversary, not as an extension of Daniel, but as my son. "Then start over," I said. Without secrets. Weeks passed. The investigations expanded. More names surfaced. More structures collapsed. Daniel's world, once hidden, dissolved into public record. And then, one afternoon, I visited his grave. I placed fresh flowers on the stone and sat beside it, the wind gentle against my face. You were right, I whispered, about everything that mattered. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, only gratitude. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A final notification from the system Daniel had built. All contingencies resolved. System terminating. I smiled. The machine had done its job. So had I, because this story was never about $25 million. It was about trust. About choosing truth over fear, and about learning far too late, but not too late, that the quietest people often carry the most powerful endings.